Barack Obama and John McCain are supposedly neck and neck, at least according to the latest polls. So who will decide the '08 election? New voters, swing voters, independents, the group GOP pollster Frank Lutz calls the floaters, or a whole new cohort that perhaps we don't know yet, brought into the process by Facebook, MySpace, and the blogosphere? To discuss these questions and a whole lot more, we welcome to the GritTV studio two veterans of electoral battle. Bill Hillsman is founder of Independent Voters of America and author of Run the Other Way. He's crafted campaign ads for Senator Paul Wellstone, Governor Jesse Ventura, Ralph Nader in 2000, and Ned Lamont in Connecticut in 2006. Morley Winograd, formerly senior policy advisor to VP Al Gore, has written Millennial Makeover, which is being heralded by a wide range of political pundits as must-read stuff for those watching this presidential contest. Both of you, thanks so much for coming in. Frank Luntz talked about floaters in a piece in the LA Times this last week. I thought those were little specks in front of your eyes. What is he talking about, Bill?
Well, he's talking about swing voters. Floaters sounds like something you might find in the bathroom or something. It's not. it's not a way that voters want to be described, I don't think.
Do you think Frank Luntz might have it wrong on how to frame a term?
I think so, but I think Frank Luntz is wrong often. So.
All right, so you have swing voters, independents. You think those are going to be the deciding voters, Bill, this election? You think they are every election?
Yeah, I think Frank is actually right about that. The only thing that he says that they're only 20% of the electorate. I think it's going to be a lot more. I think it's pushing 30%.
Now, didn't we find that in 2006 a lot of people identified as independent but behaved just like Democrats?
Well, they didn't have that many choices to choose from. I mean, this is not an election like 2000 where there were really four candidates in the race. This is going to be an election between the Democrat and the Republican, and they're going to go with whichever one they think matches up what they think.
Well, what do you think,
Morley? I think this election will be a very partisan election. I don't think that the independent vote will have as much impact as it has had in the recent past. We're entering a different era, what we call a civic era. We had one of those back in the 1930s and 40s. And independent voting and ticket-splitting voting dropped dramatically.
So you mean you could have increasing numbers of people identifying as independents, because there's no question that's happening?
Actually, there is a question about that happening. Really? The high point of independent voter identification was 1987. About 40% of the electorate at that time identified themselves as independent voters. Today, in the latest polls of this year, the number's down to about where Bill referenced, about to 28, 29%. It's likely to continue to fall. In civic eras, no more than 20, 25% of the voters really consider themselves independent, because part of fixing the political process becomes identifying with a party, rooting your team on, and voting in quite record numbers very heavily for that party.
We've certainly seen in this primary race on the Democratic side increasing rates of self-identification of party affiliation with Democrats, decreasing rates on the GOP side. You say, though, that independents are not going to be the people that will decide it.
That's
It'll
correct.
be some other group we don't know yet.
Well, no, we do know the vote. It's people 25 and under. There are about 40 million of them eligible to vote in this next election. Same numbers as those called senior citizens, 65 and over. And they're voting in record numbers because that generation votes. They also identify with the Democratic Party by about a 2-to-1 margin, according to Pew surveys. And just finally, so that Bill can get a word in edgewise, they're the first generation in four to identify, more of them identify as liberals than as conservatives.
Bill,
so it's something to celebrate.
This is how Democrats lose elections. This is how they lost 2000. This is how they lost 2004. It's this notion that it's about this partisan base that's so large, and it's not. Almost all young people are self-identifying as independents right now.
By 2-to-1 on Democratic side, and very few independents.
That's not an independent. I mean, I reject that. The younger that you go, the more you consider yourself a self-identified independent. A lot of what we're talking about here, it depends on what polling methods you want to take a look at. Pollsters have been gaming the system for a long, long time. They will take your record, and if you've got a voting record and you vote predominantly Democratic, they will not rank you as an independent, even though you're stomping your foot in saying that. They'll rank you as a leans Democrat or a soft Democrat.
Well, the polling data we're talking about is verified about 3 ways between the Pew Research folks, who are very nonpartisan. Some unique research we did for our book, Millennial Makeover, using entertainment survey research data, and work done at the Harvard Institute of Politics. But
you're not buying your statistics, Bill.
No, the point is that
the reason this is
point is that Bill is absolutely right if the election were being held 10 years ago. But that was the former era. We're no longer in that baby boomer-driven era of distrust of politicians and politics.
We're
and
not?
I've got to vote for the man, vote for the party. We entered a new era in 2008. It continues to confound the pundits who think that nothing ever changes.
But which era are you talking about? Are you talking about the era that people got all excited about Barack Obama, or the same era in which people got really discouraged about the Congress they just elected?
Well, it's the same era because it's the same motivation. It is we need to go in and we need to fix the political institutions of America. And we think this guy over here, Obama, might be able to do that, so we're going to support him. But that's not the fundamental motivation. The fundamental motivation is to change the institutions.
Bill.
Longest chapter in my book is about polling and how bad it is, political polling compared to commercial market research. But I think we actually agree here. Young people are going to have a huge impact on this election. But I think that young people identify as independents, and apparently there's statistics out there that say that that's not correct.
Well, but the reason this is so exasperating for somebody like me, you guys are supposed to be the experts. Somebody is supposed to have the data on this. And it's on this analysis of our electorate that huge and critical decisions get made. Are you going to have candidates running to the center after those center independent swing voters, and we're always presented of them as
Frank Luntz's argument,
that middle cohort? Or are we going to have progressive candidates who feel buoyed by the mood of the nation to actually pitch their arguments to that majority that's against the war, that wants government engagement on questions of poverty and education? Which is it?
An organization like MoveOn buys into this. An organization like MoveOn thinks that by running spots that appeal to more partisan so-called independents, that they are going to be persuasive.
Well, weren't they in 2006? Didn't they help, along with a lot of other phenomena, to pull out more people to vote in those midterm elections and elect more progressive Democrats?
I think they did on a localized level. I think when you're talking about a national level and you're talking about the presidential race, there's ways of communicating that have a big backlash against independent voters.
All right, so let's watch this one MoveOn ad. This is the MoveOn ad that's running right now. It's an anti-war, anti-John McCain ad. And Bill, you're saying it doesn't work. Take a look.
Hi, John McCain. This is Alex, and he's my first. So far, his talents include trying any new food and chasing after our dog. That and making my heart pound every time I look at him. So, John McCain, when you say you would stay in Iraq for 100 years, were you counting on Alex? Because if you were, you can't have him.
Over 3 million members of MoveOn.org Political Action are responsible for the content of this ad.
I mean, that's pretty impressive, persuasive to me. It's moving. It's, touches the heartstrings. You get to you think about John McCain in 100 years. Why doesn't it work, Bill?
It's intellectually dishonest, and independents who have a soft spot for John McCain to begin with are going to take a look at that and go, that's not what he said.
But it's exactly the kind of thing that your friends on the Facebook and MySpace world will be spreading around, going viral.
Well, absolutely. And the millennial generation, is anti-war over the nature of how it's been waged and the lack of results from that effort and the costs. So that's absolutely true. I also tend to agree with Bill on this one. I'm not sure that's the way I'd go about arguing the case against John McCain. The much more effective and much more popular viral video is one having John McCain say completely opposite things all the time. That is a way of destroying faith from a millennial.
So go for the flip-flopping.
And that's the way you get independent voters. What you need to do with independent voters to win this election, if you're the Democrats, is to point out that the John McCain of today has gone through all sorts of chameleon-like changes since the John McCain of 2000.
On the other hand, the Personal Democracy Forum that just concluded here in New York this week had the spokesperson for John McCain explain the fact that it was okay for John McCain not to own or ever use a computer. He still got the concept of the internet. When you think of the internet as a concept, you've lost the millennials.
So you should be feeling pretty cheery around about
absolutely.
now.
Absolutely.
It's progress, though. John McCain's saying he just doesn't understand it. He's not calling it the tubes or something like that.
Or a Google.
Yeah.
Let's watch one more ad before we draw this conversation to a close. This is a Ned Lamont ad that you played a role in, Bill, that was part of Lamont's primary campaign in the Democratic race in 2006 in Connecticut. Let's take a look.
Didn't see that coming. I've gotta stop doing this. Stupid car!
If the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, why in the world would we send Joe Lieberman back to the U.S. Senate?
That was a very popular ad, got a lot of coverage and carriage on the web, got syndicated all over. What do you think were the pros and cons of that ad, Bill, and then Morley?
Well, I think the pros were obviously that it drew a very clear distinction with Joe Lieberman and said, why do we keep electing this guy when he basically can't figure out what's going on? He's got a horrible track record. The downside to it might be that we showed a guy running into a brick wall over and over and over again, and you have to not like Joe Lieberman a lot to have that come across.
What do you think, Morley?
Well, I think the image of running into a brick wall is one that actually may have worked in Senator Lieberman's favor, because it looked like a futile effort if I just keep running into a brick wall. And so I'm very much of the belief that when pundits focus on the television ads, and I know Bill makes a lot of money doing that, they're missing the way millennials actually take in information, which is with their own videos, with their own conversation, or direct access, such as the 35-minute race speech by Senator Obama, which got wonderful viewing on YouTube, because millennials want to see the real thing. They're not interested in the television commercial.
All right, thank you both. This conversation could go on, and I wish it actually could go on. It will go on, I'm sure, once the cameras have stopped. Our guests are Bill Hillsman, who's the author of a brand new book, Run the Other Way, Fixing the Two-Party System, One Campaign at a Time, and a great cover with the rear ends of two political animals. Millennial Makeover is the book by Morley Winograd, MySpace, YouTube, and the Future of American Politics. You're watching GritTV, a whole lot more of this as the program continues.